Welcome to your personalized deep dive into today's crucial news for UPSC aspirants. It's May 28th, 2025, and we've gathered the key developments for you.
That's right. We're aiming to give you a clear understanding of what matters most.
Exactly. Explain those foundational concepts behind the headlines and really highlight the relevance for your mains exam. Think of this as your shortcut to being well-informed.
Definitely. And today we're unpacking quite a bit, everything from, global trade disputes at the WTO, the Catch-a-Thief issue popping up again,
Right.
to big domestic policy shifts like simultaneous elections and new insolvency reforms.
And we'll also touch on international relations, India's economy, science, and tech, all through that UPSC lens.
Our mission really is to make these complex topics clear, engaging, and give you that essential knowledge and perspective you need to excel.
We'll explain the basics in detail, discuss the implications for India and the world.
Okay, let's get into it, starting with the World Trade Organization. Seems like there's another deadlock. Yes, it's quite a familiar story in Geneva, a fresh deadlock, and it's, again, that split between developed nations, think EU, US, Japan, and developing countries like India, South Africa, Brazil.
And what are the sticking points this time?
Two main areas, really. First, e-commerce. Developed countries are pushing hard for liberalizing digital markets.
Okay, what does that mean practically? Like data flows?
Exactly. Fewer restrictions on cross-border data flows, clearer rules on digital taxes, more openness for online services. But developing countries, including India, are hitting the brakes.
Why the hesitation? Is it about protecting local industries?
That's a big part of it. They want policy space, to nurture their own digital sectors, which are often still growing. Plus, there are major concerns about user data, privacy, security.
So it connects to things like India's own policies.
Precisely. Think about India's draft national e-commerce policy from 2019 that aimed for data localization, fair competition. And the Data Protection Bill from 2023 regulates cross-border data flows. It's about digital sovereignty, too.
And India hasn't joined that big e-commerce initiative at the WTO, right? The JSI.
Correct. India stayed out of the Joint Statement Initiative on e-commerce. That's a pretty clear signal about wanting to maintain control over its digital policy.
Okay, so e-commerce is one friction point. What's the other?
Agricultural subsidies. This is always a sensitive one. It boils down to public stockholding PSH for food security.
Like India's MSP program.
Exactly like the minimum support price system. The government buys grain at a set price, which supports farmers and ensures food for public distribution. Developed nations argue these subsidies distort trade and want stricter limits under the WTO's agreement on agriculture.
And that agreement has different parts, doesn't it?
Yes, three main pillars: market access, domestic support, which is where MSP falls, and export subsidies.
So India's food security measures are bumping up against these WTO rules.
Pretty much. India's Food Security Act, the National Food Security Mission, MSP procurement, it's all fundamental. But there's temporary protection from the Peace Clause, agreed back in Bali in 2013.
The Peace Clause. What does that do?
It basically shields India's food subsidy programs from legal challenges at the WTO for now. Even if they exceed the limits, provided certain conditions are met, it buys time while they seek a permanent solution.
Okay, so for UPSC prep, what should aspirants focus on here? Prelims first.
Right. For prelims, WTO basics functions, HQ in Geneva, the ministerial conference as the top body. Understand the agreement on agriculture's three pillars. No, India is not part of the JSI on e-commerce. Remember the TRIPS agreement on intellectual property, and definitely the Peace Clause from Bali 2013.
And for mains, GS2 and GS3.
For mains, think bigger picture. The tension between digital sovereignty and global norms. The balancing act between farmer welfare and trade rules. That whole north-south divide, the lack of trust in WTO reform. It's GS2 IR and GS3 economy territory.
So India's trying to keep control over its food and data policies. Are there downsides?
There can be. Risk of isolation, maybe retaliatory trade measures. It could potentially impact export competitiveness down the line, and it certainly slows down multilateral trade reform efforts.
What's the way forward then? How does India navigate this?
Well, likely pushing for that permanent fix on PSH. Also, transparently showing the impact of subsidies, maybe using different methods. Building alliances with other developing nations on digital trade is key, and developing domestic e-commerce laws that work internationally but protect local interests. Plus, constant diplomatic engagement on WTO reform.
Okay, let's shift gears. Domestically, the Catch-a-Thief dispute is back in Parliament.
Yes, the debates reignited in both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha over this small island in the Palk Strait. India ceded it to Sri Lanka back in '74.
Refresh our memory. What's the basic story of Ketchethivu?
Sure. It's a tiny uninhabited island near Ramaswaram, historically used by Indian fishermen from Tamil Nadu and also for pilgrimages. But the 1974 bilateral agreement transferred sovereignty to Sri Lanka. Then, a 1976 agreement basically barred fishing in each other's waters.
And the controversy is around that 74 transfer.
Exactly. The main argument is that it was done via an executive agreement, not a constitutional amendment, which some argue is required for ceding territory under Article 368. This raises questions about federalism. Did the center consult Tamil Nadu enough? And the process itself.
So the immediate worry now is for the Tamil Nadu fishermen.
That's the heart of it. They traditionally fished there, but now face frequent arrests by the Sri Lankan Navy if they cross the maritime boundary line. MPs are demanding either reclaiming the island or securing fishing rights.
UPSC relevance here. It looks like geography and IR.
Definitely. GS2 IR, GS1 geography. For prelims, know its location in the Palk Strait map, question potential. Understand the 1974 agreement, and link it to constitutional articles. Article 1, Union Territory, Article 368 Amendment, maybe even Article 21, Right to Livelihood, as argued in some PILs.
What are the broader implications of this resurfacing?
Well, it's that tricky balance between sovereignty and fishermen's livelihoods. It highlights potential federal tensions if states feel ignored. It creates diplomatic friction with Sri Lanka over the arrests. And the legal question about ceding territory without an amendment lingers.
Any potential solutions or ways forward being discussed?
Renewed talks with Sri Lanka on joint fishing or regulated access is one avenue, maybe a legal review of the agreements. Investing in modernizing fisheries, promoting deep-sea fishing to reduce pressure on Palk Bay waters, better maritime diplomacy, perhaps confidence-building measures, and ensuring Parliament has more say in future boundary agreements.
Okay, moving to another domestic policy issue. Simultaneous elections. A new panel's been formed.
Yes, a high-level committee, chaired by a retired Chief Justice, has been set up by the central government. Its job is to explore the feasibility of holding Lok Sabha and state assembly elections together.
What's the main idea behind simultaneous elections? Why the push?
The argument is it reduces the frequency of polls. That means cutting election costs, less disruption to governance from the model code of conduct, and maybe even boosting voter turnout. It's worth noting India actually did have simultaneous elections until 1967.
And the timing of this committee seems significant, looking ahead to 2029.
It does suggest a serious revival of this long-standing reform idea, yes.
Where does this fit in the UPSC syllabus? Polity, I assume?
Absolutely. GS2 polity and governance. You need to connect it to key articles. 83 for Lok Sabha tenure, 172 for state assemblies, 324 for the election commission, potential amendments to Articles 85, Lok Sabha dissolution, 174 state assembly dissolution, and 356 president's rule are central to this discussion.
Right.
Also, be aware of past reports. Law Commission reports 170 to 250 of 21st century generally supported the idea. Niti Aayog had a discussion paper in 2017, too.
But making it happen sounds challenging. What are the hurdles?
Oh, definitely. Big hurdles. Constitutional amendments are needed, which requires broad political agreement. That's tough. Federal concerned states worry about national issues dominating and losing autonomy. Logistically, it's immense. Security forces, EVMs, personnel across the whole country at once. Political consensus just isn't there yet.
I've heard about a constructive vote of no confidence idea.
Yes, that's sometimes mentioned, inspired by Germany. The idea is a government can only fall if a stable alternative is ready to take over immediately. It could prevent premature dissolutions that disrupt the election cycle.
So if this were to move forward, what steps would be needed?
First, constitutional clarity through amendments. Then, building that political consensus, which is crucial. Maybe pilot it first in UTs or a few states. Strengthening the Election Commission's capacity is vital. And of course, public awareness and debate.
Okay, let's shift to the economy, specifically new insolvency reforms from the IBBI. Aiming for speed, are they?
That seems to be the goal. The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, the regulator under the IBC, 2016, has proposed reforms for faster resolution, especially for MSMEs. They also want a tighter time frame for liquidations when resolution fails.
Quick refresher, IBBI, IBC, and why the focus on MSMEs?
Sure. IBBI, set up in 2016 HQ in Delhi, regulates the IBC. The IBC itself is the framework for resolving insolvency within set timelines key for ease of doing business. MSMEs are crucial, the backbone of the economy, but often more vulnerable financially. So faster resolution is vital for them.
What specific reforms are being proposed now?
They're looking to boost the use of prepackaged insolvency resolution, or PPIRP. That was launched in 2021 for smaller MSME defaults under one core threshold. It's meant to be quicker. They also want to limit extensions to the standard IBC timeline, which is usually 270 days max.
So trying to fix the delays and backlogs we hear about?
Exactly. The reforms target delays, the judicial backlog at the NCLT, that's the National Company Law Tribunal, the adjudicating authority, and sometimes low recovery rates. Plus, making sure MSMEs are actually aware of and can access these mechanisms.
UPSC focus here, GS3 economy.
Yes, GS3 economy under banking reforms. For prelims, no IBVI is statutory, NCLT is the adjudicator. Remember past reforms like PPIRP and the 2021 IBC amendment, know about information utilities for financial data, and maybe the ballpark recovery rate around 32% in FY24, for instance.
What's needed to make these reforms work effectively?
Strict timelines are key. Using tech for automation, like case tracking, better outreach so MSMEs know their options, more data transparency via information utilities, and harmonizing IBC with other laws like Sarfeesi and the Companies Act for a smoother overall system.
Okay, let's pivot to the international scene again, the South China Sea. Sounds like tensions are rising with ASEAN getting worried.
That's the report. Growing unease in ASEAN because of, well, more assertive Chinese naval and coast guard activity, specifically near the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, particularly around Scarborough Shoal.
Can you quickly break down the South China Sea dispute and ASEAN eases?
Sure. It's a vital waterway, resource-rich. China claims most of it via its 9-dash line, which isn't recognized under international law, specifically UNCLOS, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea from 1982. This claim overlaps the EEZs, that's the 200 nautical mile zone from the coast, where a country has resource rights of several Asian nations. ASEAN is the 10-member group of Southeast Asian nations.
And what specific actions are causing alarm now?
Reports of the Chinese Coast Guard using water cannons against Philippine vessels near Scarborough Shoal. This comes after the 2016 International Tribunal ruling that favored the Philippines and rejected the 9-dash line, a ruling China ignores.
Where does India stand on all this?
India's position is consistent. Support for freedom of navigation, adherence to UN sea laws, which India ratified in '95. We engage through the Quad, our Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, IPOI, and the Sagar Doctrine, security and growth for all in the region. It's about a rules-based maritime order.
What are the broader implications if things escalate there? For the region, for India?
It's a threat to freedom of navigation, first off. Big risk of conflict or miscalculation. It tests ASEAN unity. For India, it impacts trade routes and our wider strategic interests in the Indo-Pacific. Could disrupt global trade significantly, cause regional instability, push militarization.
What's the way forward? How to cool things down?
More diplomatic dialogue is crucial within ASEAN and with China. Strengthening Indo-Pacific partnerships like the Quad, more joint maritime exercises, insisting on adherence to UNCLOS rulings, and using surveillance and multilateral forums to trap behavior.
Okay, let's bring it back closer to home socioeconomically. Gulf migration from Kerala seems to be picking up again.
Yes, there's a definite rebound post-pandemic. Migration numbers to the Gulf are nearing pre-COVID levels, which means that dependency on remittances is rising again. Kerala is, after all, the top remittance-receiving state in India.
Why has Gulf migration always been so significant for Kerala?
It's decades old. Driven by job opportunities in the GCC countries, UAE, Saudi, Qatar, etc., in construction, healthcare, hospitality. The money sent back, the remittances, are a huge part of Kerala's economy, supporting families, boosting consumption.
What are the signs of this renewed dependency?
We're seeing a surge in work permits, visa applications, especially for the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Districts like Malappuram and Kollam, historically high migration areas, are seeing this uptick strongly. It highlights the ongoing challenge of creating enough good jobs within Kerala itself.
How does this tie into UPSC prep?
It's GS1 Indian Society, Migration Impacts, GS2 Welfare Schemes for Overseas Workers, and Prelims, Demographic Trends. Know about central initiatives like the Emigrate Portal, the PBY Insurance Scheme, and Kerala's own NORCA Department for Non-Resident Keralite Affairs.
Are there risks to this heavy reliance on Gulf jobs?
Definitely. Overdependence on volatile Gulf economies is one. Worker exploitation is always a concern. Vulnerability during economic downturns or crises there. And it potentially hinders diversification of the local economy back in Kerala.
What could help Kerala build a more resilient economy?
Diversification is key, promoting local sectors like MSMEs, tourism, services. upskilling workers for better jobs both abroad and at home, strengthening labor agreements with GCC nations for worker protection, using data to guide migration policy, and better support for returnees, helping them reintegrate, maybe start businesses.
Right. Let's move to another economic and environmental topic. Blue Economy Mission 2.0 sounds like an expansion.
It is. The government has launched this next phase to enhance the sustainable use of India's ocean resources, building on earlier efforts.
Can you quickly define blue economy for us?
Sure, it essentially means using ocean resources sustainably for economic growth while keeping the ecosystem healthy. Think fisheries, aquaculture, marine tourism, shipping, ports, potentially offshore energy, marine biotech. With India's long coastline, major ports, a huge EEZ, about 2.4 million square kilometers, the potential is massive.
And what's new or expanded in Mission 2.0?
It seems to deepen the focus. Plans include sustainable deep-sea fisheries management, developing ecotourism responsibly, mapping ocean resources more thoroughly, and conserving marine biodiversity. It builds on the 2021 Blue Economy Policy Framework and links strongly to SDG 14, Life Below Water.
UPSC relevance here, environment and economy.
Exactly, GS3, Environment and Economy. Prelims could ask about coastal ecosystems, SDG 14, or the definition itself. No related initiatives like Sagamala Port Development and the Deep Ocean Mission, seabed mapping, deep-sea tech.
What are the potential benefits if this mission succeeds?
Could boost coastal livelihoods, improve climate resilience, ocean health, enhance India's strategic and economic role in the Indo-Pacific, promote green jobs in the marine sector.
What's needed to make it work?
Better coastal governance coordination between ministries and states, more investment in marine R&D, enforcing sustainable fishing, promoting public-private partnerships, say in marine tourism, and global engagement through partnerships.
Okay, let's tackle a recurring debate. The Global Hunger Index dispute. India's challenging the 2025 rankings again.
Yes, the government has reiterated its disagreement with the GHI methodology and rankings, which placed India below some neighbors. It's a consistent stance.
Remind us what the GHI is and what India's main objections are.
The GHI is published by Concern Worldwide and Wealth Hunger Health, NGOs. It ranks countries using 4 indicators: undernourishment, child wasting, child stunting, and child mortality. India's main issue is with the methodology, particularly the data source for undernourishment, arguing it doesn't accurately reflect India's food situation and improvements.
And the government's response this time?
Calling the index statistically flawed and motivated. They're pointing to national data, like NFHS 5, which showed reduced stunting, though anemia persists, and Poshan-IPN data as evidence of progress.
How should UPSC aspirants approach this?
It's GS2 welfare hunger and GS3 stats interpretation. Prelims. Know about indices reports India's GHI rank as reported. Crucially, know India's own nutrition programs. Poshan-IPN midday meal, PM Poshan, ICDS, TPDS under the National Food Security Act, NFSA 2013. Be aware of data sources like NFHS, CNNS, Poshan Tracker.
What are the underlying issues in this debate?
Data gaps and differences between global and national surveys. Concerns about the transparency of some NGO indices. Persistent child nutrition challenges within India, and issues like urban or hidden hunger that might be missed.
What's a constructive way forward?
Perhaps developing an India-specific index, improving data collection nationally, better targeting of nutrition programs, engaging constructively with global index publishers while presenting India's own data clearly, using tech for better monitoring.
Okay, let's look at another policy implementation. Biometric authentication for PDS is now mandatory in 10 more states.
That's right, expanding the requirement for Aadhaar-based biometric verification at ration shops.
Quick basics: PDS and biometric authentication.
PDS is the public distribution system subsidized grains via ration shops under the NFSA. Biometric authentication means using fingerprint or iris scans linked to Aadhaar via EPS machines to verify beneficiaries before they get rations. The aim is to stop fraud, duplication, ensure food reaches the right people.
Why make it mandatory in more states now?
The push is to curb leakages, especially in states with higher reported fraud. It also strongly supports the One Nation, One Ration Card, ONORC, scheme for ration portability across states. The Anavitron portal helps monitor this in real time.
UPSC focus points.
GS2 governance, GS3 SciTech. No NFSA 2013, ONORC, EPS machines, Aadhaar Act 2016's role.
When there were debates around making it mandatory, right?
Yes.
Exclusion concerns.
Absolutely. The big worry is exclusion. Genuine beneficiaries being denied rations due to tech failures, connectivity issues, Aadhaar mismatches. This hits vulnerable groups hardest: elderly, disabled, manual laborers, people in areas with poor infra. The digital divide is a real concern.
So how to balance efficiency with ensuring no one is excluded?
Auditing exclusion cases is vital. Having fallback mechanisms when biometrics fail, improving tech infra in remote areas, a strict no-denial policy for technical glitches, training shopkeepers. Community monitoring can also help accountability.
All right, let's end on a high note. ISRO's successful test of its reusable launch vehicle.
Yes, a major achievement. They successfully tested the RLVTD, the technology demonstrator, with an autonomous horizontal landing in Chitradurga, Karnataka.
Explain RLV basics. Why is reusability such a big deal in space?
An RLV is designed to return to Earth after launch and be reused for more missions, unlike traditional rockets that are used once. The big deal is cost reusability drastically cuts the cost of getting to space. Think SpaceX's Falcon rockets. It also means quicker launches and more sustainable space activity.
And what did ISRO achieve in this specific test?
They proved the autonomous landing capability. The RLVTD was dropped from a helicopter, navigated itself down, and landed perfectly on a runway. It shows mastery of crucial tech like aerodynamics, autonomous navigation, precision landing, key steps towards a shuttle-like operational vehicle.
Why is this significant from a UPSC perspective?
Huge for GS3 science and tech. Prelims might ask about ISR missions, know about RLVTD, Gaganyaan, human spaceflight, in-space, private sector regulator, NSIL, commercial arm, and the draft Space Policy 2023 encouraging private players.
What are the long-term implications if India masters RLV tech?
It positions India as a low-cost space launch provider, huge for commercial launches, maybe even space tourism later. Right. Massive national pride, boosts the whole STEM ecosystem. Of course, there's competition from SpaceX, China, others.
What are the next steps for ISR with RLV?
Likely more R&D into materials, AI navigation, expanding public-private partnerships, integrating RLV with satellite launches, building human capital, maybe international collaborations.
Wow, okay. So from the complexities of global trade at the WTO and revisiting Kachathivu to domestic reforms like simultaneous elections and insolvency changes, pushing space tech boundaries, we've covered a lot.
We really have. We've seen India engaging globally, tackling challenges at home, and striving for self-reliance in tech, all really crucial areas for your UPSC preparation.
We hope this deep dive didn't just inform you, but maybe spark some curiosity to explore these topics even more. What stood out to you? Any questions still buzzing around?
Yeah, definitely think about how interconnected all this is. Global trade affecting farmers, domestic reforms impacting governance, tech leaps changing India's place in the world.
Exactly. How might all these factors shape India's future policies and its role internationally? That's something to keep pondering as you continue your prep. Subscribe for daily updates and do drop a comment with your thoughts.
And please check out the Telegram channel link in the description. You can read the news discussed today and try a quiz based on it.
Jai Hind.